guys, welcome back. We are doing lesson 15 for Wit and Wisdom. Our focus question today is, how do characters respond to the powerful force of the wind? And our content framing question is, what does a deeper exploration of sensory and feeling words reveal in Gilberto and the Wind? So we're going to be using our 5 senses again, okay? Remember, seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, and touching. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to begin with a brief review of volume as we practice reading our fluency homework, which we'll do after this. We're going to listen for sensory words that describe what Gilberto saw, heard, and felt in the story. Then we're going to continue our deeper exploration of words by acting out how Gilberto felt during the interactions between himself and the wind. And then we're going to experiment with adding responses to a problem to a story in preparation for writing a story later on. All right, so let's share my screen. All right, Gilberto and the Wind by Marie Hall Etz. I hear wind whispering at the door. He whispers, "You." So I get my balloon and I run out to play. At first, Wind is gentle and just floats my balloon around in the air. But then with a jerk, he grabs it away and carries it up to the top of a tree. "Wind, oh Wind," I say, "blow it back to me, please." But he won't. He just laughs and whispers, "You." All right, so now let's get into our, nope, not that one yet, our video. So let me make it bigger. Let me move myself out of her picture.
Hello, first grade friends, and welcome back to Wit and Wisdom in Sync. My name is Tanisha Spears, and I'm excited to jump into our lesson. But before we do, let's make sure you have your materials ready. For this lesson, you will need your copy of the text, Feel the Wind, if you have it. You will need handout 5A, which is your research evidence organizer, your Wit and Wisdom in Sync journal, a pencil, and you will need access to the Great Storm of Galveston if you have that as well. Pause the video now if you need to gather your materials. In previous work, you had an opportunity to identify what was happening in the text, Feel the Wind. And you had a chance to find similarities and differences in 2 new sources in order to answer the research question. Today, you will continue gathering evidence from another source as well as look closely at the words and illustrations in the text, Feel the Wind. And the question that will frame our learning for today is, what does looking at words and illustrations reveal to us? One more time. What does looking at words and illustrations reveal to us? Now you're going to look closely at key pages in the text to understand what information you can gather from the words and what information you can observe in the illustrations. We're going to examine a page together, and then you will examine a set on your own. Listen to me read page 13 aloud. Okay, friends, now what I want you to do is I want you to look carefully at the illustration from page 7 of the text, Feel the Wind. It's on your screen, or feel free to use your book if you have one. Now, what do you think the boy is experiencing with his senses? I'll ask you one more time. What do you think the boy is experiencing with his senses? Think about, what does he see, feel, and hear as he experiences the wind? Think. Now, share your ideas with your learning partner or just share aloud if your learning partner is not available. Maybe you thought that the boy might feel cold because the wind is blowing through his window and he's pulling his blanket up to his neck. You might have also thought how he hears the wind whistling and howling, making a whoo noise. And we can see also that the curtains flutter in the wind. Do you see it? The words that describe what people experience through their senses, like sight, hearing, and touch, are called sensory words. I'll say it one more time. The words that describe what people experience through their senses, like sight, hearing, and touch, are called sensory words. And you will be collecting sensory words throughout this module and recording the sensory words on the chart you see on the screen. Let's review the sensory words for see, hear, and touch that we found on page 7. Flutter, whistling, howling, cold. These sensory words are being recorded so you can use them later on in the module. Now you're going to look closely at key pages in the text to understand what information you can gather from the words and what information you can observe in the illustrations. We're going to examine a page together, and then you will examine a set on your own. Listen to me read page 13 aloud. When heated air over the earth rises, cooler, heavier air rushes in to take its place. The moving air is wind. I'm going to read it one more time. When heated air over the earth rises, cooler, heavier air rushes in to take its place. The moving air is wind. Now let me think about what I just read. What did I learn from the words? What information did I learn from the words? I learned that hot air rises and cold air comes in to take its place. That is wind. Moving air is wind. Did you learn the same thing? I'm sure you did. Now I'm going to look at the illustration on page 13 to see what more information I can learn. I noticed the arrows on the earth. Some are red and some are blue. And I bet the red arrows represent the warm air and the blue arrows represent the cold air. The arrows in this illustration show me how the air moves. The warm air moves out from the middle and towards the top and bottom or the poles. And the cold air comes from the top or the bottom or the poles and moves to the middle. I don't know about you, but this illustration on page 13 gave me so much more information and helped me better understand how the air moves. Now it's your turn, friends. First, I'll read you the words on page 22 and 23, and you'll explain what you learned from the words. And then I'll show you the illustrations and you can explain what information you learned from the illustrations. Are you ready? Listen carefully. People have used the power of moving air for thousands of years. Windmills are wind-powered machines. The blades of a windmill turn when the wind pushes against them. The turning blades move other parts to lift water, grind grain, saw wood, or make electricity. Now think, what information did you learn from the words? What information did you learn from the words? Pause the video and record or write to explain what information you learned from the words. Now, look closely at the illustrations that go with the words you just heard. What new information do you learn from the illustrations? One more time. What new information do you learn from the illustration? All right, friends, now you are going to pause the video to record or write to explain what information you learned from the illustrations. Are you ready? Pause the video now to record or write. I'm sure you learned a lot, and I really wish I could have seen what you have written. How did the illustrations help you understand the text? Think. How did the illustrations help you understand the text? Okay, I want you to get ready to share your thought with your learning partner, but I want you to use this sentence frame. The illustrations show me, and then of course, you'd fill in the blank. Are you ready? Think again. How did the illustrations help you understand the text? Now, share with your learning partner using the sentence frame, the illustrations show me. Did you share? I'm sure you did. The words and illustrations can provide different pieces of information that work together to help readers better understand the text. Now, if you need to, pause the video to stretch or take a quick break. When you're done, unpause the video. Welcome back, friends. You are going to read another informational text to add to your knowledge about hurricane winds. And you're going to follow the same routine you've used before to gather key details from a new text about a storm in Texas 100 years ago. Now, before we read the new text, let's take a moment to remind ourselves of our research question. And that question is, what does the wind do during a hurricane? One more time. What does the wind do during a hurricane? This time, however, you will write down the information yourself as you listen to the text. And you will do that by using handout 5A. It looks like what you see on your screen. And don't worry, if you don't have the handout, you can just use your journal. As I read the new text, you should write information that you learned from the words and the illustrations in the right-hand column. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, friends, this book is a true story about a hurricane that hit Galveston, Texas more than 100 years ago. And I am going to read some excerpts from the book to add to your research. I want to remind you to listen for information that will help you answer the research question. And that question is, what does the wind do during a hurricane? I want you to listen carefully. Are you ready? Here we go. The Great Storm of Galveston. Back in 1900, Galveston was buzzing. It was a hot spot with sand and sun. It was also in the path of many storms, but many of those storms were small. People felt that they were safe. Then came the Great Storm. Galveston was never the same. It all started over the ocean. Hot air rose. A hurricane was born. The big storm was swelling, bringing rain and wind, and it was twisting a path to Texas. But no one there had a hint. Back then, we could not track hurricanes. We did not have planes to spot them from afar. By the time people could see a storm, there was no time to run. Okay, I want you to think about what I just read. And think about the research question. What does the wind do during a hurricane? Take a moment and record some details on your handout or in your journal. Okay, let's read some more. But remember, you're thinking about not just the words, but also the illustrations. Here we go. When it hit, it was too late. The water rose up like a wall. Wind tore off roof tiles. Waves swept away homes. It was one of the worst storms the United States has had. All right, take a moment now and again record details on your handouts or in your journal. All right, friends, this is the last page we'll look at. Take a look at the illustration. The outer part of the hurricane, where all the clouds are swirling around, is called the wall. and the space in the middle is called the eye. Take another moment, record your details on your handouts or in your journal. Okay, take a look at your handout. You'll see a column that I pointed to earlier. It says Source 3. And this is where I would like for you to share with your learning partners something you learned about what the wind does during a hurricane from reading the text, The Great Storm of Galveston. Did you share? I'm sure you did. All right, if you haven't done so already, please be sure to write some information about what hurricane winds can do in the Source 3 column on handout 5A. If you want to listen to me read the text again, you can go back in the video. Remember, you can write down information you learned from both the words and the illustration. All right, pause the video now to write information about what hurricane winds can do. All right, friends, just like you, I've added information from the Great Storm of Galveston to my chart. Remember, on my left-hand side, I have information that I've learned from the text, Feel the Wind, and on the right-hand side, I have the information from the Great Storm of Galveston. Now what we are going to do is we are going to find similar information on both sides of the chart. Listen as I read the information from Feel the Wind. Blows more than 100 miles per hour, knocks down trees, can knock things over. Just as we've done before, I'd like you to use a thumbs up when you hear information from the Great Storm of Galveston that is similar to the evidence that we captured from the text Feel the Wind. I'll say it again. When you hear information that's similar, I want you to put a thumbs up. Okay, here we go. Caused a lot of damage. I'm going to put my thumb up because that is similar to knocks down trees, because when trees fall, they can cause a lot of damage. Tore off roof tiles, swept away homes. I put my thumb up there as well because when wind is blowing that strong, it can tear off roof tiles and sweep away homes. The eye and wall are parts of a hurricane. I am not putting my thumb up there because that information is not similar to any evidence I captured from the text Feel the Wind. Let's analyze our chart. You will see the lines connected when things are similar, and you'll see an underline when it's different. Do you see it? All right, awesome first graders. Nice job thinking about what the illustrations and words reveal to us. Nice job also looking at another source and making observations on things that are similar and different. Next time, we will continue working with this text and preparing for our focusing question and task. But until then, be kind and do something great because you are capable of greatness.
All right, so let's stop sharing. It is time for our deep dive. We're going to examine verb tenses today. So how many of you like to play a game? Most of us do, right? We're going to play a game, charades. So I'm going to call out an action word from the text, and I want you to act out that word. All right, for example, I'm going to say, whisper. How would you whisper? Great job. Grab something. You grab it, right? Or you laugh. Or you move. Good. Or climb. Great job. Okay. Now, what did all those words from our game have in common? Well, they were all action words. They all told us something that we were doing. They were all verbs. Now, all words from this game are verbs. Verbs are words that tell what someone or something is doing. So a verb is an action word. A verb also tells when someone or something is doing something. Verb tenses are important because they tell us when the action is happening, has happened, or will happen. Verbs happen in 3 different times: the past, the present, and the future. Now remember, the past happened yesterday, so it's already happened. The present is right now. The future will happen tomorrow or later today or maybe next week. All right. So what about the word whispered? Whispered. Whispered means it happened in the past. It's not happening now, but it happened in the past. And how the way you can tell that is by the ending, because it ends with an ed, and that is a form of past tense. What about whispering? Whispering means it's happening now. It's in the present tense. What about will whisper? That is in the future. That means you're going to do it later today or later tomorrow. And there's that special little word will that tells you it is in the future. What about this word? Grabbed. That's past tense, isn't it? What about will grab? That's future tense. What about grabbing? That's present tense, happening right now. So why do you think using verb tense is important? Because it kind of tells us when things are happening, right? In the past, present, or future. So it's very important that you're writing things correctly so people understand what's going on, right? All right, my friends, thank you for listening. And we are done today. So I will see you back here again tomorrow for our next lesson.